Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into an explainer that is, honestly, it's the ultimate masterclass in entrepreneurial resilience. We're looking at the incredible survival story of Hans Wilsdorf and his immortal brand, Rolex.
Okay, so let's just jump right in and ask the elephant in the room question. How exactly do you go from losing absolutely everything to creating an empire that survives world wars and global crises? Because when you really peel back the layers of this story, you realize it's not actually just about making watches. No, it's a profound step-by-step lesson in relentless adaptation.
In this explainer, we're going to break down Wilsdorf's playbook into 5 parts, from orphan to entrepreneur, pivoting through global crisis, solving user pain points, the power of public stunts, and finally, engineering an immortal brand.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, from orphan to entrepreneur, the foundation of a fighter mindset. Look at the sheer velocity of the tragedy Wilsdorf faced early on. It's wild. He's orphaned in Germany at just 12 years old, right? The future looks incredibly bleak. But he pushes forward, eventually making his way to Switzerland in 1900 to test watch accuracy. We're talking checking hundreds of them every single day. And then, disaster strikes again. In 1903, his entire inheritance, 3,300 gold marks, is stolen right out from under him while he's in transit to London. But here's the thing. He doesn't fold. He pivots, he partners with his brother-in-law for capital, and launches his own firm by the time he's 24. That fighter mindset, it became the absolute bedrock of his company's DNA.
And this early hardship forged a razor-sharp business instinct. He immediately spotted a massive flaw in consumer behavior data. While his competitors were all obsessing over the status quo, basically making these super fancy, highly decorative pocket watches, he realized that real travelers just needed a reliable, portable timepiece. Wilsdorf's vision was simple: make watches that are accurate, durable, and elegant. He wasn't just building a product, he was building exactly what the market desperately needed but literally didn't have yet.
Which brings us to Section 2, pivoting through global crises, adapting to existential threats.
Okay, I really want you to focus on this devastating number right here, 33%. When World War I broke out, the British government slapped on this massive 33% export tax to fund the war effort. Because of this, Rolex's prices skyrocketed overnight compared to their foreign competitors, and their sales absolutely fell off a cliff. Now think about contemporary corporate stability strategies today. Modern megacorporations often rely on these rigid, slow-moving boardrooms to try and weather economic storms. Well, Wilsdorf simply didn't have that luxury. He had to be incredibly agile.
So, to survive this severe economic hit, Wilsdorf pulled off a masterful, rapid-fire pivot. He completely abandoned his pre-war strategy in London. He packed up, moved the newly named Rolex Watch Co. Ltd. to Switzerland, and completely shifted his entire product line to meet the massive wartime demand for military trench watches. Talk about adapting on the fly.
Let's look at the actual technical innovations that made this pivot successful. These trench watches were packed with game changers. Unbreakable glass, a super robust body construction, and luminescent radium hands so you could see them in the dark. These specific features meant soldiers could check the time in the muddy trenches without having to drop their rifles just to dig around in their coats for a pocket watch. By solving a literal life-or-death problem, Wilsdorf took the wrist watch, which up until then was kind of dismissed as just a female bracelet accessory, and turned it into a heroic, absolute necessity for men.
Moving on to Section 3, solving user pain points, driving product evolution. So back then, traditional snap-on Tiffin box watches were a nightmare. They constantly let dust and water in, which completely ruined the complex internal movements. To fix this, Rolex engineered the 1926 Oyster case, using this incredibly ingenious 3-step screw-on mechanism. By tightly screwing the component grooves together, adding rubber sealing rings, and finishing it off with a winding crown that sealed the whole body up like a submarine's hatch, Rolex essentially created an impermeable fortress for their watches.
But, as always, human behavior created a brand new problem. Even with this waterproof Oyster case, people just kept forgetting to screw the crown back on after they manually wound their watches. And of course, water would seep right back in. So, Wilsdorf hits the drawing board again and invents the Perpetual rotor. It's this semicircular weight that rotates 360 degrees inside the watch, transferring energy through gears to automatically wind the mainspring just using the natural movement of the wearer's arm. It was brilliant. No more manual winding meant no more vulnerable open crowns. Problem solved. And his obsession with the user experience never stopped, not even after facing immense personal tragedy, like his wife passing away in 1944 or dealing with the massive global supply chain nightmares of World War II.
For instance, when the 1945 Rolex date just came out, some users had a really simple complaint. The date was just way too tiny to read. Instead of completely redesigning the entire mechanical movement, which would have been a nightmare, he actually found inspiration in a drop of water that happened to fall on his watch. His fix? He just added a 2.5x magnifying glass directly to the face of the watch. Simple, elegant, and perfectly effective.
All right, Section 4, the power of public stunts, building unshakable brand prestige. Having a waterproof watch is one thing, right? But getting people to actually believe you is a completely different challenge. So, Wilsdorf decided to manufacture his own prestige by making swimmer Mercedes Gleitz his very first brand ambassador. He thrust his product right into the most highly visible extreme environment possible by having her wear the newly invented Rolex Oyster, literally dangling on a necklace during her grueling 10-hour attempt to swim the freezing cold English Channel in 1927. Now here is the truly amazing part. Gleitz actually got completely exhausted from the freezing temperatures and had to be rescued before she could even finish the swim. But this stunt was still an absolute triumph for Rolex. Why? Because of this exact outcome. The watch worked perfectly when checked. It was ticking away like nothing happened. This undeniable proof firmly cemented the Rolex Oyster as the world's first truly waterproof watch in the eyes of the global media. And he didn't just stop at the initial stunt. He brought the proof directly to the consumer through a seriously brilliant retail strategy. Sure, he featured Gleitz heavily in print ads, but get this. He actually placed Rolex Oysters inside actual water-filled fish tanks right in retail store windows, complete with live swimming fish. He even hired British star Evelyn Leigh in 1928 to model the watch with her hand fully submerged in a fish tank. He completely captured the public's imagination by taking this technical innovation and making it visibly undeniable right there on the street.
This brings us to Section 5, engineering an immortal brand, positioning watches as luxury lifestyle items. Look at how deliberately he targeted specific high-stakes lifestyles here. It's like a masterclass in positioning. In 1953, he released the Explorer, which was a strong, unbreakable watch built specifically for mountaineers conquering Mount Everest. Then, in 1955, out comes the GMT Master, with a rotating bezel so commercial pilots could effortlessly track multiple time zones. And in 1960, the Deep Sea Special, an experimental watch that literally survived 11,000 meters of crushing water pressure. By doing this, Wilsdorf ensured that Rolex became totally synonymous with unmatched resilience and human exploration, right up until he passed away in 1960. So, as we wrap up and you reflect on Hans Wilsdorf's unbelievable journey from a penniless orphan to a titan of industry, I want you to really think about the question here. Rolex conquered the deepest oceans and the highest peaks by obsessing over quality, listening to users, and flat out refusing to quit when the entire world economy collapsed. So, how will you adapt to your own crises? How will you solve the painful problems right in front of you and build a legacy that lasts forever? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep building.